Thursday night playing at the Railway Hotel, Pitsea. It was this sort of playing. It wasn't like a music place. It was like we're just on this stage playing, and a kid coming, can you turn it down a bit? You know, so people were just in there to have a drink, really. And I think the nearest we got to a pop song actually was we learned Buddy Holly, Heartbeat. Now, if you can imagine Lee Brillo singing Heartbeat, but we did.
It sounds quite good when you imagine it. Were you already doing your famous walk at this point, or was that something kind of developed?
No, when did that? One thing we did do then was we got this gig backing this character called Hines, who had a big hit in the 60s, a song called Just Like Eddie, and he lived locally, and he was still doing gigs for Teddy Boy clubs and things. And somehow or other, he got on the bill at this, in 1972, was this big show at Wembley Stadium, rock and roll show, where you name them, they're on it, Jerry Lee Lewis, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Bill Haley. Fantastic. I mean, it was a great, and we were in the opening part of the show. There were all these kind of banger British bands, Screaming Lord Sutch and people like that. And anyway, I just quit teaching. It was beginning of the summer, and I still had long hair. In fact, there's footage of this that can be found. I'm standing there staring at my shoes and playing Eddie Cochran number or something with Hinesy. And anyway, at one point, I walked out from under after we'd done our bit, walked out from under the stage from the dressing rooms, turned around and saw this band on stage, and I was knocked sideways. The band was the MC5, and that Wayne Kramer, the guitarist, he was a mean mover, and I thought, that's it. And that started me off on my own mean moves.
So have you got the photographs of the long hair period?
Yes, there is photographic evidence of this period in this book, actually, which is on sale, all good bookshops. But no, yeah, that was very impressive. Very thick hair, I'm quite jealous. I'm very jealous of your hippie era thick hair.
Yeah.
So it's in the film. There's a curious TV appearance you make when you get interviewed. And
All about the oil protest.
Huh?
The protest against the oil reform.
Oh, yes, protest. We were among the first environmental protesters. They wanted to build some more oil refineries on Canvey Island, and they built this big new road onto Canvey Island. It was actually just for the oil tankers to drive down, and there was a protest organised at the opening of this road, and which mainly actually the main participants in this protest, like, it was in the daytime, so the only people that were like housewives and mothers and things, there were their prams and stuff. There was about, I don't know, 50 people. Also there was me and my brother with our long hair, and the police had overreacted to this thing, and but there were hundreds of police. I mean, they just panicked, but they knew there was going to be this protest. So of course they saw me and my bruv and arrested us. Yeah, so but anyway, I got involved I think in doing this environmental protest. But ironically, when Feelgood's got going in earnest, we came to. Well, to tell you the truth, I always loved the oil refineries on Canvey Island. It gives a skyline to rival New York, I think. You see this, the towers and that, and the flames and I always loved it.
There's a fantastic part in the film when you're in films with all the oil refineries behind you. You could just wave your arms around, describe it. It's one of the great parts.
Yeah.
Do you think? I mean, this always sounds constantly pretentious, but do you think that kind of feeds into your music in a way? That the Canvey Island, the oil refineries.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think the kind of music we're playing is a kind of urban music, and it fits in with that. And also we used to fantasise when we weren't playing so many gigs and that. We used to fantasise about it, you know. And I would try and work that landscape, if you like, into the songs I started writing. And you know, we used to call Canvey Island Oil City. You know, we go Oil City. So yeah, it's all mixed up. I mean, now what's fantasy and what's who knows?
So you kind of like making a myth out of it, kind of like the American blues myths, American cities.
Exactly, you know. And of course we couldn't resist the idea that there's the Thames estuary there is a delta. So you know, the Thames Delta, you know, in a blues man. You know.
Another lovely story you told me before is when you first went to London to check out the pub rock bands before you played there, and you and your brother went. And I can't remember you went to see now, but you just spent the whole gig laughing your heads off because you thought, if that's the competition, London is ours.
Yeah. And we were right.
well, you actually were right.
Yeah.
So who did you actually go and check out?
Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
So what was it like? Because this idea of the pub rock scene was like always really hard driving bands, but it wasn't. It was quite varied, wasn't it? Really?
We heard about although Canvey Island is just an hour away from London. We'd never played in London, and then we heard that there was this scene going on with these gigs, you know, the Hope and Anchor and Dingwalls and so forth, and it was just, wow, we can get lots of gigs, you know, and by the time we started playing there, it was kind of an established scene, and we had 2 years playing locally, and by then we'd got the look. I cut my hair and we were wearing cheap suits and doing our thing. And a lot of the bands on that pub scene were in fact established musicians. And people were going to these gigs to see music. And we turned up and we were out of nowhere, and yet we'd got a whole thing together. And we didn't turn our backs to the audience and play long solos or anything like that, and so it did have a remarkable effect, and picked up very quick.
Because in a weird way, Carnegie rock and roll, you're sort of this weird. You're not quite pub rock, you're not quite punk rock. You had your own little space in between.
Yeah. I mean, I always object to this term pub rock. You see, look. One thing actually, certainly in those days, I was pretty strictly teetotal and rather puritanical about alcohol. So, you know, the very word pub was anathema to me. But I also didn't talk about pub rock as though it's a kind of music, and it isn't. I mean, there was all kinds of music being played there. It's a kind of venue. There were just some venues in town that, you know, happened to be pubs. So if you say pub rock, it doesn't really explain what was happening there. And we had our own. We thought it was R&B means something else these days, doesn't it? But we thought we were playing rhythm and blues.
Well, which you were. Yeah, you were kind of recreating the kind of thing the Stones had in 1963.
I think the reference point is the Rolling Stones. That's the. It's like the English take on rhythm and blues, yeah.
So then Andrew Moore decided, he's one of the great A&Rs, isn't he? And so he picked you up, and then you had the Stupidity album, which was like incredible. It was the #1 album, the live album.
Yeah.
Completely opposite of everything else.
Went straight to #1.
And I remember when it went to #1, it just seemed really bizarre. How did you pull that off? That just seems really...
Well, I don't know. It was our third album. I think we'd released 2 albums. We'd started to go to America, I think, yes. And then we were about to do a third album, coming back from America, and we didn't know what to do, you know. So, well, actually, the thing to do, what everybody's crying out for, is a live album. And so we did a live, well, I mean, we looked through the tapes that there were of shows we'd done, and made a live album. There was a bit of... The record company wanted us to... In those days, I don't know if it's still the same or what, a live album was a bit of a misnomer. They would, in fact, you know, a live album, they would overdub everything or redo everything, you know, like all the guitar parts and that, and until you ended up, the only thing that happened live on the night might be the bass drum track or something like that. And I was insisting that we weren't going to do this. I mean, like, for instance, I remember the record company was, at one point, was something they wanted Figure to overdub every single snare drum beat on the thing so that they could get the acceptable sound or something. And I was adamant that we would just make a live album, bum notes and all, because that's what, you know, that was a live album. And I wasn't going to replace things, and there were sort of eyeball-to-eyeball confrontations about this. And Vic Mail, the producer, told me at one point that the record company had been in there, and they said to him, right, we're going to let Wilko have his way on this, and it's going to flop, and then he'll have to do what he's told. And of course, it went straight to #1 on release, and I was very magnanimous.
But you were, because being main songwriter about it, so you were under a lot of pressure, really, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You always said that's one of the things that led to the final sort of.
I think I was getting isolated because I mean, yeah, I was writing the songs, and it's kind of, you know, you talk about pressure and stuff, and people go, oh, it's terrible pressure on the road and that, you know, but is it? I don't know, you're going around everywhere, flying around and going to different places, and everybody's telling you were great, and everybody wants to go to bed with you, and that was a terrible strain. But there was a bit of that, and also this alcohol thing. I mean, Lemmy's take on the Dr. Feelgood was always, Lemmy said, look man, in one way, he said, you're a speed freak and they're alcoholics, and now the twain's on me, and I didn't.
Yeah, because he understood about that, because he got thrown out awkward for taking the wrong drugs, which is always like the funniest thing in rock and roll. Because you also had that flat as well in London, didn't you, which Lemmy moved in afterwards. Pretty crazy flat. You lived there, JJ from the Strikers lived there. It's kind of one of the kind of punk dens, wasn't it?
Yeah, well in fact, somehow or other, that flat used to... I lived there first of all with a girlfriend, and Jean-Jacques Bernal moved in after a while, and this was when the punk movement was just starting, and a lot of these kids, weren't they? These punk musicians. They used to come round and crash there and that. You know, I'd get up in the morning and I'm tripping over Billy Idol and things like that. You know, so yeah, some mad scenes happened there.
So did a lot of those punk bands, did they look on you as like a mentor, or was it a slightly older person who's actually been through it?
Yeah, when Feelgood's bust up, I mean, all the punk thing had kind of happened in '76 when we were touring America, and suddenly I was out on my own, and I'm thinking, what all these new musicians, what are they going to think I'm just one of these boring old farts or something, or, you know, are they going to spit at me, or whether. Then I started meeting them, and I realised, in fact, they'd all been to see Dr. Feelgood, and Dr. Feelgood had been a bit of an inspiration to all of them, and meeting these guys, making friends with them, realised, I think they looked on me as a, what should we say, uncle.
Uncle Wilko. Yeah. So I remember you saying once I think you were in America, and someone showed you the front page picture of the Sex Pistols Bill Grundy thing on the newspapers, and you remember seeing them at gigs before or something?
Well, I first heard of the Sex Pistols when Dave Higgs, who was the founder member of Eddie and the Hot Rods, who was a Canvey Island boy. And then one night he come down my house, we're from the upper door, we have this band supporters called the Sex Pistols. And I remember going, oh, what a great name for a band, you know. And then, I don't know, he was complaining about his sex pistol. And you know, I thought no more of it. And then a short while later, I was in New York, and I managed to get I got hold of a copy of the Daily Mirror. And there on the front page was this swearing on television outrage. I thought, oh, it's Sex Pistols, and that was my first kind of inkling of the punk thing happening.
Did you not notice how many people in the punk movement actually use Telecasters?
Did they?
Yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, everyone got a Telecaster. You basically get a Telecaster whole.
Yeah, well, I think I sold that. In fact, the Fender guitar, I finally released a Wilko Johnson signature Telecaster, and you can't get one because they've all sold out, right? Bloody Fender, man. But I think I've sold so many Telecasters, either directly because of people in some, or people like Joe Strummer who used a Telecaster because he'd seen me using one. And anyway, Fender have finally got round to doing it, and it was released a couple of months ago, and they've all sold out in this country. People I know I've got them about to send to Germany for them. And the guy from Fender came round my house 3 or 4 weeks ago. So, blimey, they're all sold out and that, and he's going. He says, yeah, we're sending 50 to Japan. And I thought, you twats. I said, I could sell 50 standing on a street corner in Tokyo, you know. And anyway, gradually Fender will realise after I'm gone.
So Zoe, how do you work out? There's so many great anecdotes, and it's actually quite a long story. How did you work out what to put in the book? Or did you just put everything in the book?
I don't put everything in the book. I'm sure there's plenty that hasn't been told as well, because it's always the way, you know, when you finished a book project and you know, we were talking about it and then you sort of mentioned an amazing story and I was like, why didn't you tell me that when I was doing the book? But yeah, I would say, you know, a lot is covered, but I think, you know, I think it's sort of, I think what's unique about it maybe is it's a kind of blend of quite long anecdotes. And, you know, we have sort of like markers along a kind of timeline, I suppose, and so we go into sort of like, you know, the hippie trail and going to India and Afghanistan and sort of look in on that and kind of magnify that, and then we sort of come out and then we look at sort of when Wilko was a teacher and sort of like talk about sort of things that, you know, there's a poem in there from one of your students, which I don't think you'd actually seen. So it was quite rude, actually, but it's you know, so just like weird little bitty things. But I think one of my favourite things in the book is actually, it's actually a school report of Wilko's. And again, what was really special was just being able to go through all these old files and boxes and find all these treasures. But there's just this classic school report. John Wilkinson at Westcliff High School for Boys, sort of end of year report. One teacher said, he should do very well. I imagine he's revised, though he'd hate to admit it. And one of my favourites is, a pass would be an undeserved result. I expect he'll pass, although he doesn't deserve to. An effort made has been somewhat erratic. And so there's like all these little kind of funny things that were just such, you know, treasures to find. It was just great to be able to kind of include them. So it's a kind of mix of those kind of things which people can just discover and read for themselves. And, you know, a lot of anecdotes in Wilko's own voice.
I mean, originally, this idea to do the book was to go like a normal kind of biography kind of book, but you felt doing a scrapbook would be better, or do you actually want to do like this in the first place?
Well, in the very first place, I was sort of thinking, you know, it was a kind of weird thing that happened in tandem with someone else as